is my great pleasure to introduce our convocation speaker, Professor Kim Cobb, who is Director of the Institute of Brown for Environment and Society. You will soon learn, if you haven't already, that Brown is the land of acronyms. It is called IBES, right? Yep. And I asked Kim to speak several months ago because I knew that her area of work, climate change, is one of the issues that students, and indeed all of us, are extremely concerned about. And that was before a summer of fires and floods and heat waves across the globe. Professor Cobb is an award-winning climate scientist whose research focuses on building capacity for solutions to climate change. I know her, and I think she's actually an optimist, which is great. Earlier this year, she was appointed to serve on President Biden's Intelligence Advisory Board, which provides counsel to the president on matters of national security, including climate change. And here at Brown, in addition to advancing her own research and teaching, she works closely with faculty members at IBES and across the university to advance our commitment to studying the interactions between natural and human and social systems. And very importantly, she works with faculty to prepare future leaders, and that's all of you, to envision and build a just and sustainable world. So today she'll speak to you about the challenges of climate change that your generation has inherited and the consequential opportunities of that inheritance. Please join me in welcoming Professor Cobb. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, President Paxson, for that generous introduction, and thank you to all my faculty colleagues, to all new and returning students and their families, and to the incredible staff that made this event possible today. And to the newest members of our community, including the class of 2027, welcome from all of us. It is such an honor to stand before you on this very special day. It also happens to be a very hot day, the fourth hottest on record here in Providence for this time of year. So while you may or may not appreciate the irony of this backdrop from my speech on climate change, I know you will appreciate me keeping this brief. So let's talk about climate change. I know, if you felt a wave of anxiety rising up inside of you, you're in good company. The vast majority of your generation, it registers one or more of the following emotions about climate change: anxiety, overwhelm, fear, helplessness. As a climate scientist, I get it. For every headline trumpeting progress, there are dozens that highlight the many ways in which our actions are grossly insufficient to the magnitude of the problem. And with every year, the ravages of climate change hit closer to home, literally, as we and the ecosystems that we depend on face a punishing assault over land, over water, and in the air. And for some, it's already too late. That was true for the coral reefs that I've studied for 25 years in the remote Central Pacific that succumbed to a marine heat wave back in 2016, then the hottest year on record. This year, another global-scale coral bleaching and mortality event is already underway as 2023 becomes a virtual lock for the warmest year on record. And it's too late for many of the world's most vulnerable communities, low-income communities, historically marginalized communities of color, who have already paid the highest price of climate change and will continue to do so, sometimes with their very lives, for every increment of future warming. Science tells us that our sluggish pace of emissions reductions to date guarantees another 2 decades of continued warming in a best-case scenario. And despite over 30 years of scientific clarity about the drivers and paces and consequences of human-caused climate change, we are woefully ill-prepared for our climate present, let alone our climate future. Even in the face of crushing and ever-escalating costs of climate change, we are still squandering precious time. So yes, that's part of your climate inheritance. It's unfair, it's wrong, and it hurts all the more because it was so avoidable. I'm not here to sugarcoat that reality, but I am here to shine a bright light on other parts of your climate inheritance. For one, you've inherited the most complete picture of our climate past, present, and future, thanks to decades of research, some conducted right here at Brown. This allows for evidence-based decision-making about our climate and energy future that will save lives and ensure continued prosperity for as many as possible for generations to come. You've also inherited a global network of climate people, as Mary Anais Heglar, a leading voice on climate justice, refers to them in her essay in the recent book, It's Not Too Late, write that down, by Rebecca Solnit and Thelma Young-Lutanabua. Climate people just can't or won't shut up about climate change. I'm one of those people, just ask my kids. When I was in your shoes, that network was vanishingly small. And now, 30 years later, they number in the many millions, and they come from all walks of life. They come from different geographies, ideologies, and ages. They are people like Zanaji Artis, who graduated from Brown in 2022 after founding the youth-led climate justice organization 0 Hour. And they are pulling on an increasingly diverse set of levers. They are working on energy efficiency and carbon markets and journalism and public health and art and ethics. They are advancing racial justice and indigenous rights, local renewable energy ordinances, K-12 climate curriculum, climate law, conflict resolution. And in our increasingly connected world, they are finding each other, and they are sharing strategies and building community. Collectively, this global network is building the momentum needed to stop global warming by mid-century and potentially initiate global cooling by the time your children are entering college. Yes, you heard me correctly. That's possible. Here in the US, their accomplishments include the historic Inflation Reduction Act that unleashed $370 billion in support of clean energy and climate resilience. Now we're talking. And this year, growth in solar and wind energy will increase a staggering 33%, making global renewable capacity equivalent to the total power output of China and the US combined. Globally, almost 1 out of every 5 cars sold is now an electric vehicle. This momentum is also part of your climate inheritance. People are finally connecting the dots between climate change and their core passions. Care about the economy? You care about climate solutions. Care about public health, social justice, national security, healthy ecosystems? You guessed it, you care about climate solutions. This work of connecting the dots is happening at dinner tables, in boardrooms, in newsrooms, and at the polls. And it's happening in classrooms all across Brown, which brings me to the most exciting and perhaps most relevant part of your climate inheritance. As a Brown student, you are now part of a community that over many decades has continually redefined climate, environmental, sustainability, and social justice leadership in higher education. And every step of the way, that progress has required deep collaboration between Brown students, staff, faculty, and the administration, with deep support from the rest of the Brown family. In 1978, Brown became one of the very first institutions to create an environmental studies program. Brown students then rolled up their sleeves to fully renovate an old carriage house into the Urban Environmental Lab, which you'll recognize as a shabby chic building adjacent to the new Performing Arts Center down the way. Several years later, students organized the first Global Warming Information Week here at Brown. In 2006, Brown students lobbied the administration to adopt a net zero emissions pledge. 2 years later, Brown became one of the very first institutions to pledge a 42% emissions reduction by 2020. And in 2019, with ongoing engagement from students and faculty, Brown set even more ambitious goals to reduce emissions by 75% by 2025 and achieve net zero emissions by 2040. Today, I'm happy to say we are on track to meet those goals. And in 2020, again with strong engagement from students, Brown pledged to divest its endowment from fossil fuels. What's next? Well, that's where you come in. Brown's new sustainability plan embraces a whole of campus and beyond approach to climate and sustainability innovation, leadership, and action through its facilities, its research, academic programming, and its partnerships. One could say that Brown is busy reshaping itself into a climate solutions machine. Anchored in Brown's core principles around justice, equity, and inclusion, Brown can play a transformative role in advancing equitable, durable, and scalable climate solutions with impacts that stretch far beyond this campus. But we will only go as fast as our community can come together to overcome the many structural obstacles that lie in our path. That's as true here at Brown as it is across the broader society. In your coursework, through student activities, internships, and research assistantships, you can connect the dots between your individual passions and goals and the many levers of collective climate action. You will find champions in Brown's faculty, staff, and administrators all across this campus who can help you on the next step of your climate journey, whether that is your first step or your millionth. But remember this, wherever you find yourself at Brown, you are exactly where you need to be. Because we need chroniclers and storytellers and sense makers of this unique moment in time. We need policymakers and economists and doctors. We need big data wranglers and technology innovators and finance gurus. We need urban planners, psychologists, and carbon sequesterers. We need teachers and artists and lawyers. We need journalists, and yes, we need voters. But most of all, we need dreamers who are not afraid to do, not because our success is guaranteed, but because failure is simply not an option. We have the opportunity, not of a lifetime, nor even a generation. Rather, we have the opportunity to shape the arc of human history on this planet. For our pace of progress on climate solutions during this critical next decade will be measured for generations to come. It will be measured in lost lives, communities, and in some cases, whole nations and entire species. But it will also be measured by all that we manage to save. So let us work together in community and shared purpose to ensure that our climate inheritance to the next generation is as large, as enduring as it can possibly be. We are all deeply honored to be part of your journey here at Brown, beginning today, continuing through your time here at Brown, and far, far, far beyond. The world deserves you, and you deserve the world. Thank you.